This year is going to be absolutely insane for the Nintendo Switch. Let's talk about it. So there's been so much talk about the Nintendo Switch in 2021 and what the future holds for the console. What are Nintendo's plans to bounce back from a pretty lackluster year in terms of first-party title launches? 2020 was a pretty trying year, so it's understandable that Nintendo was not able to release as many first-party titles, but as of 11 days ago, 2020 is officially over. It is now 2021, and we are looking towards the horizon of what the future holds for Nintendo in 2021. I'm talking software and I'm talking hardware in the form of the Nintendo Switch Pro, and hopefully some big heavy hitters that we get this year. So first, let's get the hardware out of the way, which I believe that we will be getting a new Nintendo Switch console in the form of a mid-generation refresh, the Nintendo Switch Pro, or whatever you want to call it. It could be the Super Nintendo Switch, whatever Nintendo decides to call it. It is going to be happening this year. I am very certain of it. Obviously, I could be wrong. It could get delayed, but I personally believe that we will be getting a new Nintendo Switch Pro in 2021. Now, if you guys have not seen my recent videos talking about the specifications for the Nintendo Switch Pro or the new Nintendo Switch, then I will briefly go over the rumored information here. So first of all, it is said to have a 4K UHD display on TV mode, and that's in the mode of a 4K UHD SoC in the Nintendo Switch dock. It's alleged to have 1080p handheld gameplay as well as better ergonomics in the handhelds, and then it's supposed to have true Bluetooth support according to the rumors, meaning you can actually plug in accessories and other Bluetooth gadgets to the Nintendo Switch and it actually have functionality rather than just not working at all. The new Nintendo Switch is allegedly supposed to have a 1080p OLED display, not 4K OLED unfortunately, but it's supposed to have at least 1080p, and the rumor is that it's supposed to have a mini OLED display, which should drastically improve the battery life. The Switch Pro apparently still uses the Tegra X1, but this time it'll be the Tegra X1 Plus in the Nintendo Switch Lite, so it's kind of a slight upgrade, not much of an upgrade, but it's still pretty significant for what it's doing. With that and the addition of the Nintendo Switch dock that has the 4K SoC in it, then it should allow for a 4K upscaled. So meaning it'll have a base resolution of 1080p that just does a dynamic super resolution to up to 4K or fake 4K resolution. Now with the new Nintendo Switch being a mid-generation refresh, I really hope they don't blunder it with the same processor that's just upgraded slightly. I personally hope that they go with something even better, preferably one that uses deep learning super sampling by NVIDIA. Obviously, NVIDIA is a partner with Nintendo, so it only makes sense for them to utilize NVIDIA's new cutting-edge technology that they've been so proud about. Now, as for the release date, as I've mentioned many times in my videos, I personally believe the Nintendo Switch Pro or the Super Nintendo Switch or the new Nintendo Switch in 2021 will release in the first half. I personally believe it'll be sometime in March. I don't really see Nintendo releasing the Switch Pro anytime after, and that is primarily due to wanting to keep their investors happy. Nintendo would not release a console after the end of their fiscal year this year. The likely scenario is that they'll do it this year right before the end of their fiscal year. So if their fiscal year end is March 31st, then they'll do it sometime before then. I think it makes the most sense to do an early March of 2021 release date just to keep those revenues high and set them up for the next year of gaming on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo is known for doing mid-generation refreshes with their handheld consoles, and that same thing is going to be applied to the Nintendo Switch. So if you still have doubt that we're going to be getting a new Nintendo Switch, just wait because it is happening. Now to shift focus away from the hardware, let's go ahead and talk about the software. Nintendo Switch in 2020 was kind of a dry year as I mentioned before, but this year is slated to be a pretty solid year. Now will we get games like Breath of the Wild 2, Bayonetta 3, and Metroid Prime 4? That's kind of up in the air. We don't really know. We'll have to find out whenever we get the next Nintendo Direct. It should be sometime early this year, hopefully before the end of their fiscal year. I think if anything, we'll get a big Nintendo Switch Direct prior to the release of the Nintendo Switch Pro, and then we'll get something in June for E3 or whatever they're doing for E3. I don't know if it's going to be a digital showcase, but hopefully they do something for E3 because that's when most of the big games for Nintendo are revealed. Will this be the year that Nintendo releases Breath of the Wild 2, or will they save that for March of 2022? It's hard saying. In my opinion, Breath of the Wild 2 is the perfect candidate for a console launch. I mean, look at what it did for the first launch of the Nintendo Switch. So it would make the most sense for Breath of the Wild 2 to launch with a 4K upgrade on the Nintendo Switch Pro at the launch of the system. Will we be getting Breath of the Wild 2? It's really hard saying. Hopefully they're about done with the game. They're using the same engine as the previous, so it shouldn't take as long. Nintendo is trying to repeat the history that they did with the Nintendo 64 and kind of use the same engine and a lot of the same assets, but upgrade them for another game. With Breath of the Wild 2 taking a more darker twist, like the transition from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, I think that they're trying to simulate that same situation. It was successful for them before, so they're going to try to do it again, and I think it's going to work for them pretty flawlessly. With how beloved the franchise is for Breath of the Wild, it only makes sense for Breath of the Wild 2 to rebuild on the foundation of Breath of the Wild 1, but add some more cool stuff and make it more freaky like they did with Majora's Mask. Now, as for another game that is a no-brainer that everyone should be looking forward to, that is Bayonetta 3. Obviously, we've seen what Bayonetta can do, and I don't think that they're going to fail with this one. I think Bayonetta 3 does release this year, but it's hard to say when they're going to release it. Probably going to be like a fall launch with another big heavy hitter for the winter holidays of 2021, and I hope that game is going to be Metroid Prime 4. So we've known about Metroid Prime 4 for a while, but we've yet to get any other information besides a title screen at a Nintendo Direct in like 2018, or it might have been 2017, I can't remember, but we do know about the existence of Metroid Prime 4, we just don't know anything about it. Last we heard, the game had some development issues, and they're having to rework it with the goals of upholding the standards of Nintendo, as well as just Metroid Prime in general. So that's kind of a wild card. I don't know if we're going to get it this year. I don't even know if we're going to get it next year, but I really hope that's the case. Now, another game that I'm personally looking forward to that I don't know if we're going to get this year, but we probably will have to wait until next year or even 2023 for that matter, is Super Mario Odyssey 2, or the sequel to the Super Mario Odyssey game. Super Mario Odyssey was an insane success for Nintendo, and as of right now, it is the second highest viewed trailer on the Nintendo Switch, and it's arguably one of the biggest console sellers for the system. It's a no-brainer that Nintendo tries to recreate that success with the next game, and I hope that we're going to get it this year. But like I said, it's probably not going to happen this year, but it is definitely an anticipated game for the Nintendo Switch, being such a success that the previous one was. Now, as for other games that are in the pipeline for the Nintendo Switch in 2021, we have Monster Hunter Rise, we have Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury that's coming out next month, we have Bravely Default, we have Pokemon Snap, hopefully we get Yokai Watch 4. The rumor is we're going to be getting a new Mario Party game in the pipeline for 2021. I hope that the new Mario Party actually has a competent online system that's not just mini games. Hopefully it actually features the board this time. We've also got the Legend of Zelda 35th Anniversary, which should lead us to another bundle similar to Mario 3D All-Stars. Hopefully we get something similar for Zelda. I would imagine that they're going to bundle Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and hopefully Twilight Princess in a 3D All-Stars game with a full HD remaster for Skyward Sword. I've got some high hopes for Legend of Zelda this year, so hopefully Nintendo doesn't fail me, but that begs the question, for Skyward Sword Remastered, are we going to be stuck with using the Joycon remotes, or will we finally be able to get controller support in the form of the Pro Controller for Skyward Sword HD? And then on the other side of things, for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, are we going to be getting the Nintendo 64 ports, or will we get the 3DS port on the Nintendo Switch? If Nintendo wants to go above and beyond for Zelda 3D All-Stars, that's how you do it. Giving us ports of a 3DS game on the Nintendo Switch in an HD remaster would be an absolute game changer. Moving right along to the next big game that I'd like to see on the Nintendo Switch for 2021 has gotta be a new Mario Kart game. Hopefully not in the form of Mario Kart Tour, because that game is super gacha. Not really interested in playing that game on my Switch because I'm not trying to do microtransactions. But a game that I would like in the Mario Kart franchise would have to be Mario Kart Double Dash 2. That game online could be the most insane game for the Nintendo Switch, and I believe Nintendo could do it. I want to see Double Dash 2 on the Switch in 2021. I would be just as excited for Mario Kart 9 on the Switch in 2021, but young Wes Nemo would absolutely lose his mind for a Double Dash 2 on the Nintendo Switch. Last but not least, we have to talk about the next big thing that I want on the Nintendo Switch in 2021, and that is more consoles added to the Nintendo Switch Online. I'm talking Nintendo 64 and GameCube. Give us all of the first-party Nintendo games on the GameCube and the 64 so we could relive them all on the Nintendo Switch. Now, the lineup for 2021 for the Nintendo Switch is already looking to be insane, but with the addition of these games, it would make it one of the most legendary years for the Nintendo of all time. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is probably not going to happen, and they're just pipe dreams that are in my head that are just floating in there, waiting for the day for Nintendo to finally release them. But I'm excited for the future of Nintendo Switch in 2021 nonetheless. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. What game do you want on the Switch in 2021? Thank you all once again for watching. This has been Wes, and I will see you on the next video.